the Mommy Author here. Just wanted to make a real quick video on new writers and a couple of mistakes I think we make as new writers. I know I've made them. I hope I don't still make them, but I'm sure there are times that I do. And that's why editing is so important. And when I first started writing, what I realized was that I was actually pretty disappointed in my teachers in high school and in some of college when it came to composition and language arts. I got A's on all my papers. They loved what I wrote, and they thought the ideas were well put together, there was a good flow, but they never judged me on punctuation. You know, where to put a semicolon, where to do this, where to do that, and I won't get into that too detailed because you really want to refresh yourself on that and what's proper and what's not proper, because there's so many different ways to write as well. And some people, I've seen some reviewers are pretty finicky over that. If it's a good story, I'm not going to get caught up over you used a comma instead of a semicolon. That's not going to hold me back on a good story. But for some people it does. But I had recently agreed to review a fellow indie author's book, and I had trouble getting past the beginning of it. And it wasn't that the writing was so horrendous. It was that there were a lot of things written in there that were repetitive. And I know when I first started writing, I had a good friend of mine that helped me to see that a lot of things are implied. You don't have to keep saying it. Your readers are smart, and once you tell them once, you don't have to keep telling them. You don't have to keep taking a scenario and keep reminding them throughout the book. The readers are pretty good to remember that stuff, and they hold on to that stuff. But a lot of things are implied. So if you are writing a scene about you're in the car and you see something, a squirrel in the tree or whatever, we know that the way you're seeing that is through a window. You don't have to write that while you're sitting in the car, you saw the squirrel up in the tree by looking out the car window that allowed you to see clearly. We know cars have windows. Unless this is some futuristic book where cars don't have windows, we know that cars have windows. Also, when I first started writing, I used to want to start sentences with the characters' names a lot. I put the names a lot. And like my friend told me, I realized that that's implied. Once, let's say Bob starts talking, we know that that next line is Bob. You don't have to keep saying it's Bob. And even with dialogue, if it's between two people, you don't always have to say after each phrase, he said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said. That's going to get repetitive. As long as you're keeping the conversation between two people, there is a certain point where you can just do the dialogue 1, 2, 3, 4, and just keep doing it that way. And you don't have to always say he said, she said. The readers are smart. They'll know that it's still a conversation going on between Bob and Jane. Unless you introduce a third character in it, then you can put some of that stuff in there, or if they do something special, like after they said it, they smirked, you can add that in there. But I think we try to overcompensate with describing scenery as well. There is such a thing as describing too much. It's good to describe so readers can get a good, vivid description in their head of what they're looking at, what they're reading. But if you start putting an overabundance of description, the scenic land was scenically beautiful. I mean, that sounds extreme, but I've read stuff like that. It's too much, and it actually retracts away from the story. I meant to say it deters them from actually hearing this great story you may have written. It clouds it up so much that great story is actually going to be lost. So I just wanted to put that out there. Remember that there's stuff that is implied. Certain things are implied. If you've already mentioned it once, you don't have to keep repeating it. Give your reader some credit in that they can follow along with what you're writing with. And if they can't, then maybe there's something you need to fix. But, if you have any suggestions, leave them down below. And also, have you ever offered to review a person's book and you just couldn't go through with it? How did you handle that? Did you have to give them the crushing blow? Did you ignore them? Or did you just give a so-so review to kind of get it off your plate? All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.